So today being the first class of botany, so what we are going to study and how we will study is, we are going to follow the pattern of NCERT, right? NCERT jeneke G2 sequence of ase, we'll be studying that. So we obviously will be starting from the first chapter, that is living world, right? So botany portion I will be covering, zoology there would be another teacher. Zoology hoise niki tumalkor? Nai hoa no? You'll have it on. You'll get the routine. So botany portion not 11 not almost all the chapters are important, right? Tar bhitor according to the new syllabus dutaman chapter kati dise, so we are not going to study that. Why we are not going to study that? Because that is not required for your boards, neither it's required for your entrance. So since not required, we'll not study. As far as the first chapter is concerned, we'll be starting the class from the first chapter itself. And we'll just we'll be starting a serious class from now. It might be of a shorter duration being the first class, but normally I so him likhim everything. Second point, always remember botany portion out, you have to write a lot. Right? So when we are writing here or when we are doing the class, it is not only the understanding part that we'll be doing, we'll be giving the notes also. Notes dizam. So when you are writing a note, to obviously dikhol hoboy. The good thing is when we are writing a note, note to we sentences likhibo lage. Kintu the good thing about entrance is obviously sentence mukhosto koribo na lage. It is the key points that you will remember, and what are the most important point from any paragraph that we will write. Ami tick kori kori goi thakim. So from entrance point of view, at a short note or at a summary type to malkor hoi jabo. Second thing is, put into the habit of writing short notes. Moi note to dighol ke dim, tat tick kora kisman points thakibo. Hey points kini ba kiba important point ma koiso niki, ekhon short note bonaba. This preparation will help you for your entrance. Understood? Ako eneke nohoy je ketaman chapter hoi jak. After that, I'll start writing the short notes. No. As we go on, you keep on writing the short notes. The third point that is important is you have to practice multiple choice questions, right? Okol theory hoi thakile nohobo. Theory is something, since we are talking from bio point of view, it's not maths, it's neither physics, right? So tumi bahut kiba eta formula bujibo laibo, kiba deduction koribo laibo, it's something like that. Whenever you read a sentence, you'll almost understand, but it's lengthy, right? Kintu poribo laibo. Poribot lagibo. Ar okol theory and hobo. The way to prepare yourself for your entrance is jiman MCQs kora. Any part that we have completed, jikuno MCQ book loba and see whether you could do the questions or not. Jedi questions koribo parisa. Tetiaha you should be you will understand that you have understood the chapter. Jedi questions koribo paranai. It is like reading a storybook. Moi aji jintu portion korim, hekini jodi moi tomak buzai goi aso. You understood everything. Kintu ghorot goi pelai ba yate tumi questions koribo parne. So questions koribo paranai jodi tumi buza nai. Either moi buzabo paranai or you did not understand. So the most important is obviously the questions, right? Next is talking from questions, or what is the MCQ book you all have? Kiba kinisa niki? MCQ book to kina tumi kinisa nai kina. So we suggest 2 books, right? So baki books to koribo para, master the NCERT and NCERT at your fingertips. Dukhon book ase moi dekham class or pisat, I'll show you. So NCERT at your fingertips. Fingertips is a very good book. Each and every line of NCERT product questions ase. Once you start doing that, NCERT khon tomar clear hoi jabo. Ar as it is, NCERT khon to main. So obviously each and every line of NCERT, each and every diagram of NCERT, figures of NCERT, information of NCERT so poribo laibo, right? Enukwa nohoy je eta photo ase, photo khon ami ignore kori dim. No. It could be of a scientist, it could be about a plant, anything, each and everything about NCERT will study. The next point is NCERT to poriboi lagibo. The notes that I will give is not exactly like NCERT. Current questions exactly like NCERT nahe tu. Understand koribole ami okon basically likhibo libo. Sometimes during the class you might feel je meme dokon bahut besi likhaise, eblak dokon dokare nai jen lagise, NCERT bookot nai, kintu I am giving. Obviously there it has a purpose, right? Ene kono bostu dia na jai, because it will have certain meanings that will help you to solve certain questions, right? So as in short, notes dighol hobo, don't get frightened, but it will become easy. And botany part, I can assure you, protectu question koribo pariba, if you pay interest obviously, right? So bhalke porha dhuniyake. Aru the last thing is how to study. So you'll be having 2 things. First, your NCERT book. Second, my notes. How to study. Certain chapters, first NCERT kon poriba, tar pisot more notes poriba. Some other chapters, first more note পঢ়িবা, তাৰপিছত NCERT পঢ়িবা. Why? কাৰণ কিছুমান বস্তু NCERT কি হৈছে, I think if you have bought the book, অকল sentence বিলাক আছে, detail description টো নাই. So if you keep on reading the main headings, concept টো বুজি নাপাবা. So first my notes, then NCERT. Certain chapters, first NCERT, then my notes. Right? As we do the chapters, we'll talk about it. So I think we can start the chapter, right? So we'll be starting with the first chapter of botany, that is the living world. NCERT book anisa niki? Nayana? Anisa? Ulwa NCERT book kan ulwa. You should also have an idea as to what we are going to study in the chapter. Right? Tumi anane? Kinisa nai? NCERT book kinloba? Okay? So in the chapter, what we have to study is right? So the main headings, you can write it down. Right? So these are the 4 things or the 4 topics that we have to study in this chapter. Biodiversity, then certain words like classification, taxonomy, systematics. We have something called as nomenclature, and lastly we'll be studying about taxonomic categories. Last year or okay, living world yatke besi পঢ়িব লাগিছিলে, কিন্তু that portion has been omitted, so we are not going to study that, right? It has been omitted from both point of view, boards and entrance. So if you go through the old NCERT books, you will come across certain things like characteristics of living organisms, etc., etc. But that is something that you will not study. So we'll be starting with the first topic, that is called as biodiversity. Whole likha. Taxonomic categories. Before starting these topics, let's understand the meaning. The first word is biodiversity. Talking about biodiversity, what we understand by the word? Biodiversity mane ki? Diversity mane different various forms, right? Biodiversity talks about what? The different types of organisms that is present in the entire world, right? Gutei prithibikhonot ki ase? Bahut dhoroner organisms ase. It could be plants, it could be animals, it could be microorganisms, etc., etc. So we have to talk about the diverse organisms present in this earth. So that's the meaning of biodiversity. The point over here is when we are talking about biodiversity, biodiversity buli eta entire chapter ase for class 12 biology. So details about this topic is something that we are going to do in class 12 when we are going to study that chapter. Biodiversity and its conservation buli totally chapter ase. So protective detail ami tathe porhim. Yate just a few lines about biodiversity. For example, what is biodiversity? according to the given or according to the known information, organisms kiman ase, plants besi ase ne, animals besi ase, a saitaman line will study here, rest of the information in class 12. Okay. Next, coming to the words called classification, taxonomy and systematics. As far as these three words are concerned, taxonomy, systematics nukhunibo para, kintu classification to hunisa. Classification mane ki? We don't want to say a proper scientific definition. In a classification mane to zanile hol. What is classification? Arrangement, right? So kisuman bostu ki korim, ami kisuman according to rules and regulations, according to certain similarities, kisuman differences, ami organisms, ekto gute world khonot bahut organisms ase, and we want to study those organisms, we want to know those organisms. So janiba keneke, jetia ami gute organisms bilakok bhalke arrange koru, and that arrangement is called as classification. Right? So we have to write something about these three words. Talking about these three words, classification, taxonomy and systematics, later we will study that each and every word or is nothing but a synonym. Synonym buzi pao? Synonym mane ki? Eketa meaning. So we will see classification is equal to taxonomy, taxonomy is equal to systematics with a slight difference. Kintu meaning to eke. Classification maneo arrangement, taxonomy maneo taxonomically ami arrange korim, or systematics or systematically ami organisms arrange korim. So it means the same. Coming to the third one, nomenclature. What is nomenclature? Giving a name to an organism is called as nomenclature. Jikunu eta organism ami discover korilu, we have to give a name. Nam to moi dile nohobo. If you want that organism to be known to the entire world, ami eta proper nam dibo lebo. And by the word proper, what we are talking about is a scientific nomenclature. Right? So when we are naming any organism, amar bilakor jeneke eta ghorot mata naam eta bahiror bhal naam thake. Thik teneke organisms bilakor will come across two words. One is called as vernacular names. Vernacular names mane ki? Local names, right? Aru eta ki hoy? Scientific names, right? What is the difference between vernacular and scientific? Vernacular names could be changed. More mon goise moi etu buli koise, tumar mon goise tumi beleg buli koba. Kintu scientific names can never be changed. In the entire world, it will be known as such. Nomenclature under, I think you have heard a word called as binomial nomenclature. Hunisla niki? Jikunu eta scientific name ot duta part thake. Right? For example, human beings or scientific name ki? Homo sapiens. Mango scientific name ki? Mangifera indica. Right? So maximum organism ba scientific namot part keta thake duta. Duta part thake karone tak ami ki buli ko binomial. Right? So binomial nomenclature is the most accepted form of nomenclature. Right? Hekini details for him. And lastly, taxonomic categories. Mane, ami jeta taxonomy korim, but when jeta ami taxonomically classify korute, ami organisms bilakok arrange korim, no? Arrange kihot korim, kisuman rank ba kisuman categories, kisuman sectionot. For example, etu eta species hoy, etu eta genus hoy, etu eta kingdom hoy, etu eta class hoy. Ebilak bostu ki hoy? Categories by rank hoy. So just to have an idea, okman just simple eta korilu. So what we'll be writing is biodiversity, heading likha biodiversity. Words kita to buzi palu? Biodiversity meaning to ami buzi palu? Right? So another point that we have said is details ami kot porhim class 12 ot yate just ami dutaman point likhim, right? Kihor? Taxonomy and Sermi. Yate ami will be talking from taxonomy point of view. ঠিক আছে? Exact similarities আমি পিছত কৰিম ক্লাছত আছে। So, biodiversity, the most commonly asked question is this one. What is the number of known species in this world? Kiman identify korise, kiman naming korise? It's almost 1.7 million, right? Kitiapa option of 1.7 to 1.8 dibo pare, kine NCERT book talks about 1.7. So maximum question has been asked about 1.7 million, right? So out of these organisms, kisuman ki hoy? Kisuman animals hoy, kisuman plants hoy. Animals besi ne plants besi? Obviously, animals we see, plants come, so we understand. Whenever we are talking about animals, animals again could be categorized under two headings, that is vertebrates and invertebrates, right? Vertebrates, invertebrates, buzi pao no? Jar spinal cord dal ase, jar nai, right? So talking about vertebrates and invertebrates, jiman bilak animals thake, so both se maximum prithivit ki ase? Insects. Understood? Right? And talking from the plants point of view, according to the NCERT, what they have said is highest group belongs to fungi. But later we will study, ami pisot eta plant kingdom boli chapter pohim, and now according to classification also, fungi does not belong to plant kingdom. Right? Etia teoloke ki kodise, je gute plants are bitot sobotse highest plant ki fungi. Kintu fungi is not a plant. It is plant-like, but it is not a plant, right? So have you heard about something called as the 5 kingdom classification? Khunisa niki? Whitaker's 5 kingdom classification. I mean, like for him. So, as a okol se gute organisms bilakot je animals or plants or duta category bhag koraise. That is a primitive way of classification. Right? Later ki korile, beleg scientists beleg types of classification provide korile, and the latest one that we study is 5 kingdom classification, which tells us that jiman bilak organisms ase no, gute organisms could be placed under 5 kingdoms. That is what is called as 5 kingdom classification, and according to the 5 kingdom, we have a kingdom for bacteria. I mean, we have a kingdom for prokaryote, eukaryotes or kingdom ase, plant kingdom ase, fungi ase, etc. So according to that classification, fungi does not belong to plants. Kintu, according to the NCERT, since we have to stick to NCERT, highest group ki fungi. Etia, jihetu moi ki kolo, biodiversity ami chapter eta beleke pohim, yaru details zanibo lagibo, right? Hetu chapter ki ase, je kisuman pie diagrams ase. Pie diagrams bilak dibo. Suppose we are talking about this as a diagram, ha? Animals buli kole, okol insects eto, okol to insects e na thake. বহুত থাকিব molasses থাকিব crustaceans থাকিব etc etc so ইয়াতে suppose এটো a বুলি দিব এটো b c d e বুলি দিব right you have to identify each and every word so that type of a question is asked কিন্তু এখিনি portion আমি biodiversity কৰিম as of now what we know the animals or highest group could have for insects similarly in case of plants on NCERT bookor mote highest group ki fungi কিন্তু from plant point of view Plant kingdom বুলি chapter পঢ়িম plant kingdom or মতে plants বিলাকক পাঁচটা category ভাগ কৰিছে right I think you have heard these words algae bryophytes pteridophytes gymnosperms and angiosperms right হেকাৰণে ইয়াতে ক'বাত fungi আছে নেকি নাই so according to that classification fungi এটা special kingdom এ আছে right according to this classification these are the 5 categories of plants tar bitor highest group car ba highest number car it is always the angiosperms right eneke je ami likhisu it talks about evolution it talks about its advancement right so according to this algae group is considered as a primitive species বা primitive group of plant angiosperms most advanced group of plants right aru sobotse beshi advanced ki angiosperms ako angiosperms are under duta ase if you have heard monocots or dicots monocotyledons or dicotyledons angiosperms has been divided under two groups eta group ok ki kom kisuman plants ok monocots buli kom kisuman plant ok ami dicots buli kom right so from evolution point of view sorry mo ulta hoise likhute so from evolution point of view sobotse advanced kuntu monocots of angiosperms. What's a primitive kuntu? Algae, first point. Second point, in the plant kingdom, highest number kuntu plant ase, angiosperms. According to NCERT, highest number ki ase? Fungi. I think it's understood? Okay. So biodiversity are dutaman point likhim. Next point. Potone point kita likhilo that will understand. As we go underlining the words, তোমালোকে underline কৰি ল'বা ঠিক আছে কাৰণ last momentত কোনকিটা পইণ্টৰ পৰা question আহিব this is what we are underlining right as far as writing a note is concerned note লিখিবলৈ হলে বহুত বস্তু লিখিব লাগে বহুত sentences লিখিব লাগে right okay I think it's over so from this point let's talk about the first line it is estimated that majority of the species diversity is confined to tropical rainforest and huge diversity also exists in water reef tar mane ki আমি কিহৰ কথা কৈ আছো biodiversity right biodiversity মানে কি diverse forms of living organisms এই পৃথিৱীত আছে this point talks about its distribution আছে ঠিক আছে কোট আছে আৰু যদি আছে সব সমানকে আছে নেকি মানে প্ৰত্যেকটো এৰিয়াত যদি if I am talking about ধৰা lion suppose ইয়াতে আমাৰ 10টা লায়ন আছে তেতিয়া সবতে কি 10টা লায়নে থাকিব নেকি তেনেকুৱা নহয় সো organisms various organisms আছে আৰু তাহাঁতৰ ডিস্ট্ৰিবিউশনটো সদায় বেলেগ বেলেগ according to certain environmental conditions right so when we are talking about the distribution কিছুমান এনেকুৱা এৰিয়াজ আছে য'ত নেকি organisms আমি বেছিকে পাওঁ আৰু কিছুমান এৰিয়াজ organisms কমকে পাওঁ again if you are talking about swap there are two words to understand do we understand the word tropical or temperate গোটেই পৃথিৱীখনক যদি দুটা জোনত ডিভাইড কৰি দিয়া কিছুমান tropical area কিছুমান temperate area right so we understand from this point or as it is also we know যে tropical areas বিলাকত organisms বেছিকে থাকে living organisms বেছিকে থাকে right because of certain conditions that we'll study in class 12 right as of now what is the difference between tropical or temperate tropical or temperate মানে কি একদম সিম্পল কে tropical or temperate মানে কি okay tropical or temperate difference ki yeah very good what is the difference tropical climate temperate climate tropical areas temperate areas ekdom simple meaning definition mukhosto nokoriba jot enekwa kisaman area jot niki hodai environment ba hodai weather to eke thake that is tropical changes nohoy amar yat jeneke kedin man ki hobo rainy season hobo kedin man gorom hobo kedin man thanda hobo we have what changes in season kisaman areas enekwa ase jot niki seasonal change nohoy gorom jodi hodai gorom right so hey bilakok ami ki boli kau tropical jo changes dekha paun tar ami ki boli kau temperate right so out of all the organisms maximum organisms kot thakibo tropical areas thakibo ar tropical areas or bahut examples ase tar bhitor highest kot thakibo tropical rainforest or thakibo right I think you have heard about Amazon rainforest right so Amazon rainforest ko tropical belt right so organisms basically kot thakibo if you are talking from land point of view tropical rainforest thakibo if you are talking from water point of view the water point of view organisms what's a basically kot thakibo it will be present in something called as water reef nai kuna sake coral reef hunisu niki ei word to hunisane okay অকল এই ওয়ার্ডটো শুনিছনে coral কি হয় এটা আন্ডারওয়াটার অর্গানিজম হয় রাইট সো যদি কেতিয়াবা হে কিবা অকবা যদি বিচ টিচত গৈছা তাৰ সাইডত মানে কি কৰি থাকে না ডেড coral বিলাক বিক্ৰী কৰি থাকে coral তো দেখাত কেনেকুৱা something that is bushy right এনেকুৱা এটা অর্গানিজম হেৰি দেখিছে ন ক্যালসিয়াম কার্বনেট বুজি পাও ন চুন right চুনৰ টুকুৰাটো কেনেকুৱা brittle type hard type coral তো তেনেকুৱাই right so it is a underwater organism right made up of it has calcium right shellot ki thakiba calcium thakiba he karone tak sule enekwa lage it's very brittle right so that is coral right coral code papa such type of a organism oceans or tolot pai right that to obviously living hoy thake I am talking about a dead one that is being sold right so coral understood eta organism reef mane ki dump eta area joti ki eta huge collection ase that is called as a coral reef coral bor besi thaka eta area that is called as reef right okol je reef কৰেলৰ লগতে থাকিব তেনেকুৱা নহয় ৱাটাৰ ৰিফ মানে কি ৱাটাৰ বেডত কিছুমান জেগা কি থাকে ডিপজিশ্যনৰ কাৰণে হঠাৎ এটা হিপ ফৰ্ম কৰিব পাৰে ফৰ এক্সাম্পল বহুত অৰ্গেনিজমছটো মৰিও যায় ন তলত মৰি যোৱা কিছুমান স্কেলিটনবিলাকতো ডিপজিট হৈ গৈ থাকে সেই ডিপজিট হ'লে এটা দাম হ'ব নহয় that is called as reef right so what we understand that tropical oceans bilakor tolot kisuman reef form kore hey reef bilakot ki hoy organisms or number to khodai besi hoy talking about reef could be natural it could be artificial also tumiu banabo para kiba bostu deposit kori ami reef koribo paru right and one example of a natural water reef is a coral reef right so iman details nalage what we understand talking about distribution of organisms basically code paba tropical area paba tropical rainforest sobotse basically ase coral reef sobotse basically ase clear okay next 2 point not very important from examination point of view right so evolution jiman hoy goise himan organisms bur identify kori aso ar prottek yeare notun organisms discover kora ase not very important this is important right so this is all about the first one that is biodiversity so we have to talk about 4 points in this chapter biodiversity ekhini information more than sufficient right so what we have learned and what is important ami ki porhilo matro tinta information important for tinta noy saita first ki number 1.7 second plants besi ne animals besi kiman 1.5 0.5 numbers were important third animal section or ki besi insects plant section or ki besi fungi and the fourth point is maximum quota se tropical areas that's all okay the next topic is So as we have said little earlier, what we said, that all the 3 words means the same, right? Protector meaning ki, we will be talking about arranging of organisms according to certain rules, according to certain criteria. So what we will do is, first I classification or definition classification kyo lage we'll be writing it. Talking about taxonomy and systematics, ta mane jikono organisms ok ami ki koribo paru classify koribo paru. Eta classify keneke koriba. Either you will go for taxonomic classification or you will go for systematic classification. Ki kolu organisms bilak classify korim ta mane organisms bilak arrange korim keneke arrange koriba taxonomically arrange koribo paru ba systematically arrange koribo paru right so there is a difference gute kita mane arrangement either you go for this type of arrangement or you go for that type of arrangement now what is the difference between taxonomic arrangement or systematic arrangement taxonomic or systematic ki hoy forms of arrangement right taxonomy or systematic arrangement or difference ki the easier way to understand is suppose tumalkor room tut tumalke kapur sapur thoi disa your parent come ma ahile ma ekole je room tu tumi arrange kora safa kora you have 2 options what you can do gute kapur khini bisnar pra loi pele cupboard to dump kori dibo para or what you can do protect to kapur bhalke japi pele cupboard to thobo para more properly basic conditions basic criteria loi pelai ami proper identification by classification korisu that is systematics right so kisuman criteria for example ami eta organism or first ami ki sa morphology we understand morphology dutaman word ase no morphology anatomy physiology morphological study bane ki outward appearance of the organism anatomical study mane ki you talk about the internal tissues cells arrangement etc physiological study mane ki the metabolic functions that is occurring for example respiration hobo pare photosynthesis hobo pare right so jikono eta organism jodi ami classify koru suppose okol morphology consider koriso tel tak ami ki boli kom taxonomy morphology saise anatomy saise physiology saise kintu evolution suwa nai right jodi hegita koru it will be called as taxonomy jodi gutei bila criteria ami lo morphology লৈছে anatomy লৈছে ecology লৈছে physiology লৈছে evolution লৈছে তেটা হেতু হ'ব কি proper classification তাক আমি কি বুলি কম systematic কিন্তু গুটে গিটাৰ meaning it's almost the same right so the first লিখা classification or definition to method of placing So classification ki hoy? It is a method of ki arrangement, right? Why do you have to classify? So why do you need to classify? To understand the organism better, right? So jate niki ami organism to janu, tahator relationship bilak pohibo paru, right? For all these reasons, we need to classify. What is classification? Arrangement. If this is over, next likha taxonomy. So taxonomy ki hoy? Etu eta arrangement. Classification ki hoy? Eta method of studying, method of arrangement. Taxonomy ki hoy? Method to ami keneke korim? According to certain rules and regulations, according to certain criterias. So the next thing that we are studying is taxonomy. What is taxonomy? It is nothing but a branch of science. Taxonomy ki hoy? A branch of science. Classification ki hoy? A method. Right? Difference palu no words gita. So it's a branch of science that deals with the study. It deals with the arrangement of organisms according to certain rules and regulation. Right? So yar bitorot, what are the points that are important? From board's point of view, obviously taxonomy definition lagibo. From entrance point of view, the point that are important is this. Who has given the term taxonomy? Yar part question ahe, and who is considered as the father of taxonomy? That is Carolus Linnaeus, right? Whenever we are talking about father of something from biology point of view, no, we come across two fathers. One, father of dash, and the other is Indian father, right? Amar dujon father type. Right? Ejon father buli koy, ejonok Indian father buli koy. What is the difference between the two? Father of taxonomy, Indian father of taxonomy. Tar mane ki? The one who has started studying taxonomy in the entire world for the first time, that is called as father. The one who has started doing taxonomy or studying taxonomy in India for the first time is called as Indian father. Right? Prithivit first june korise teok father buli kom. India june korise Indian father buli kom. Right? It is not like this that we'll have it only for taxonomy. Belek belek karase. India, I mean, father of bryophytes. Indian father of bryophytes. Right? So I think we understood the difference. Right? So out of this three, etu question upor iman aha nai kintu ei dutar pora ahise. We can always study. Now, elements of taxonomy. Taxonomy ki hoy? The taxonomy is a process through which we will arrange or we classify the organisms. Right? Classification koribo parim. Keneke koribo parim? Taxonomically. So, jikuno eta bostu jete classify koriba. Think about a condition je tumi kobale goisa eta organism dekha paisa. Right? Hey organism tuk tumi first thought ki koriba? Identify koriba. Tak ki koriba? Tar characters bilak poriba. Right? Prothomate identify korila, tapsot tar characters bilak porila, tarpisot tumi gom pal. First identify mane ki? Dekhilei tu ami gom pam. Either it is moving or it's not moving. So if it is moving, we'll consider it as an animal. If it's not moving, we consider it as a plant. Right? So first thing we identify, then we write the characteristics. Tarpisot we go for naming the organism. Notun bostu eta dekhisa, naam etao to dibo mon jabo. Right? So these are called as key elements. Tamane taxonomic study keneke korim. Taxonomic study koribole amar ketaman point ase. Point word to use no kori, ami ki use korisu elements. Right? So we will go for characterization, we'll go for identification. Tar pisot ki korim? Naam dim. Nomenclature. Tar pisot ki korim? Bhalke classify korim. Bhalke classify mane tar genus ki hobo. Tar species to ami gom palu, tar class kuntu classot fall koribo, etc. etc. So these are the points by which we can go for a taxonomical study. Tar bitot first to ami likhilo, right, number 2. right? সেইকেইটা হৈছিল নে? হৈছিল ন? So we are talking about taxonomy. These are the points that are important. Talking about elements, আমি কি কি পালো? Characterization, identification, next, nomenclature, next, classification. So question I have, what are the elements of taxonomy? The elements of taxonomy are characterization, identification, nomenclature, and classification. No doubt we are writing it in this sequence. I mean, first ki likhiso characterization. Kintu question ahe, what is the first step of taxonomy? The first step of taxonomy, according to the note that we have written, I mean, first ki likhiso characterization. Kintu actually ki hobo, first I mean, think about a condition jot niki tumi organism eta dekhisa, prothomote ki koriba, identify nokorim janu. আমি তো তাৰ characteristics লিখা আৰম্ভ নকৰো. So the first step of taxonomy is always identification. কিন্তু NCERT এনেকে দিছে, so we are writing it down like this, right? So we understood these are the elements of taxonomy. Hold no? Over? Next, look at types of taxonomy, 2 types. লিখি লোৱা আৰু কিছুমান বেলেগ types of taxonomy আছে. The other part we are going to study in a chapter called as plant kingdom. ঠিক আছে? From this chapter, I mean from this point of view, chapter point of view, আমি অকল এই দুটাই জানিব লাগে. So, elements of taxonomy পঢ়িলে, next is types of taxonomy. Talking about types of taxonomy. First, taxonomy মানে কি? যে আমি ক্লাসিফাই কৰিম অৰ্গানিজমটো, ৰাইট? চ' ক্লাসিফাই কৰোঁতে আমি কিবা এটা বস্তু ক্ৰাইটেৰিয়া হিচাপে ল'ম ন, কেৰেক্টাৰ হিচাপে. যদি তুমি ক্লাসিফাই কৰিছা লুকিং অনলি এট দ্য মৰ্ফলজিকেল ফিচাৰ্ছ, তেতিয়াহ'লে তাক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম? ক্লাছিকেল. Right? Always remember, whenever we are using this word classical, we are talking about primitive type of classification or a study. Right? Classical বুলি ক'লে আমি পিছত আমি কিছুমান words পঢ়িম যেনেকৈ artificial classification, natural classification, etc. etc. Right? So, classical বুলি ক'লে আমি গম পাম বা artificial বুলি ক'লে আমি গম পাম যে we are talking about something that's primitive. আৰু যদি primitive হয় তেতিয়াহ'লে অকল আগৰ দিনৰ scientistবিলাকে classify কেনেকৈ কৰিছিল? অকল বাহিৰৰ বস্তুটো চাই পেলাই. Any type of a study that is based only on morphology is considered as primitive or classical. Right? The next type of classification is modern, and we know the meaning of modern. Jedi modern hobo lage by accepted taxonomy hobo lage tetihala okol bahiror to site hole no hobo. You have to talk about each and every feature of the organism and what are the conditions that we are taking for it. We are talking about the external structure of the organism. Ki poriso? External feature. External feature mane morphology hoy na hoy. তাতে কি চাইছিলো? অকল মৰ্ফলজি. ইয়াতে কি চাইছো? এক্সটাৰ্নেল ফিচাৰ্ছ, তাৰমানে মৰ্ফলজি. ইণ্টাৰনেল ফিচাৰ্ছ, তাৰমানে এনাটমি. ষ্ট্ৰাকচাৰ অফ আ চেল, তাৰমানে চাইটলজি. ৰাইট? চ' অৰ্গেনিজমটোৰ মৰ্ফলজিকেলিও পঢ়িছোঁ, এনাটমিকেলিও পঢ়িছোঁ, চাইটলজিকেলিও পঢ়িছোঁ. উই আৰ টকিং এবাউট দ্য ডেভেলপমেণ্টেল প্ৰচেছ, তাৰমানে ফিজিঅলজি. Right? And together with that, we are talking about the ecological information of the organism. তাৰমানে যিকোনো এটা organism study কৰোঁতে আমি যদি morphology consider কৰোঁ, anatomy consider কৰোঁ, cytology consider কৰোঁ, তাৰপিছত কি কৰিছোঁ? Physiology consider কৰোঁ আৰু ecology consider কৰোঁ. Right? এই গোটেইকেইটা factor consider কৰি পেলাই যদি আমি classify কৰোঁ, সেই classificationখনক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম? Taxonomic classification বুলি ক'ম. Classification মানে arrangement. Arrange koribole ami kiba kibi criteria lagibo. Ki criteria? You are studying the morphology, you are talking about the anatomy, you are talking about the cytology, you are talking about the physiology, and you are talking about ecology. Ekita condition loi pelai jedi ami classify koru. Hey classification okon ki buli kom? Taxonomic classification buli kom. Buji pana? And talking about classification okol morphology lole classical. Jedi ebur conditions law, tak ami ki buli kom? Modern. No hoy. Systematics of hobo, there should be a difference between taxonomy and systematics. Yatke aru eta point besi. Taxonomy kat ami keita kolu 1 2 3 4 5. Systematic classification there are 6 criteria. That is the difference between. We'll be talking about that later. Right? So out of these words that we have written, morphology understood, anatomy understood, tissue porhim ami, right? Cytology understood, structure of a cell, eukaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell, organelles ki ase, mitochondria ase ne nai ne, etc. etc. Physiology ami janu, it could be photosynthesis, it could be respiration. Coming to this word called as ecological study. Ecology mane ki? Eta organismor ecological study korisu, tar mane ki? Eta organismor morphological study korisu mane buji palu, bahirto salu. Eta organismor anatomical study korisu mane buji palu. You kata TS section ta luba, under the microscope you'll see. Right? Eta organismor ecological study, by ecological we use a word called as eketai bostu. Right? First, duitata ecology word to ase. First, what is ecology? Ecology is the study of an organism together with the biotic and the abiotic features. আমি প্ৰত্যেকটো এটা এটা অৰ্গেনিজম ৰাইট আমাৰ অকলে যদি মোৰ কথা পঢ়ে তেতিয়াহ'লে ইকলজি নহয় ইট ইজ আ ব্ৰাঞ্চ অফ চায়েন্স য'ত নেকি অৰ্গেনিজমটোও পঢ়িব লাগিব অৰ্গেনিজমৰ লগত ৰিলেটেড আবায়টিক ফেক্টৰ্ছবিলাকো পঢ়িব লাগিব এতিয়া মোৰ লগত ৰিলেটেড কি আছে এয়াৰ আছে উইণ্ড আছে ৱাটাৰ আছে এটচেট্ৰা আছে ৰাইট টেম্পাৰেচাৰ আছে চ' বায়'টিক আবায়টিক ফিচাৰ অফ দেট অৰ্গেনিজম সেই ষ্টাডিটোক আমি কি বুলি কওঁ ইকলজি চ' প্ৰত্যেকটো অৰ্গেনিজম বেলেগততো নাই ন তাৰ লগত আবায়টিক ফিচাৰ্ছ বায়'টিক আবায়টিক বুজি পাওঁ লিভিং নন লিভিং ৰাইট চ' যিকোনো এটা অৰ্গেনিজমৰ আবায়টিক আৰু বায়'টিক ফিচাৰ্ছ তাৰমানে মোৰ বায়'টিক ফিচাৰ্ছ কি হ'ব মোৰ নিজৰ কণ্ডিশ্যনছ মই বেলেগ অৰ্গেনিজমৰ লগত কি ৰিলেশ্যন শ্বেয়াৰ কৰোঁ ৰাইট আবায়টিককেইটা বুজি পালোঁ চ' সেইটো যদি ষ্টাডি কৰোঁ তাক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম ইকলজি ইটছ এ ব্ৰাঞ্চ অফ চায়েন্স ফাৰ্ষ্ট ছেকেণ্ড পইণ্টিত প্ৰত্যেকটো অৰ্গেনিজম ৱৰ্ল্ডত এটা ইকলজিকেল ৰোল আছে right কিছুমান organismsৰ ৰোলটো বেলেগ কিছুমান organismsৰ ৰোলটো বেলেগ for example have you heard the words called as producers consumers and decomposers শুনিছা so কিছুমান organisms worldত আমি কি বুলি কওঁ producer হিচাপে কনসিডাৰ কৰোঁ কিছুমানক কি বুলি কওঁ consumer হিচাপে কিছুমানক decomposer এই যে word গিটা this is the role of the organism that is what is called as ecological role that is what is called as ecological function of an organism right if you are talking from plant point of view plant or ecological role ki producers tare produce kore from animals point of view ami ki koru consume so amar consumers so amar ecological role ki we are consumers plants or ecological role ki producers what about the microorganisms decomposers right so I think now we understood so eta organism or morphology porhila anatomy porhila cytology porhila ফিজিঅলজি পঢ়িলা তাৰ লগতে তাৰ ইকলজিকেল ৰোলটোও পঢ়িলা গোটেইখিনি পঢ়ি পেলাই যদি এটা ক্লাছিফিকেশ্যন কৰিছা তাক আমি কি বুলি ক'ম টেক্সনমিক ক্লিয়াৰ এতিয়া ইকলজিটো যদি কনফিউজ হৈ যোৱা পিছলে ইকলজিকেল ইনফৰমেশ্যন বুলি ছাইডত লিখি থ'ব পাৰা এই ৱৰ্ডকেইটা লিখি থ'লে আৰু নাপাহৰা So the next time you study the note, by these words you will understand. Right? So this is all about systematics, taxonomy. Next heading likha systematics. definition to iman important nohoy, right? Man kosto koribo na lage. At least from entrance point of view to important nohoy. Both point of view jodi what is systematics boli koy, you can write it down. Or you can, we have another definition also, we'll be writing it down. From entrance point of view, what is important is systematic word to first, but systematics kune use korisil first. Aru, it comes from the Latin word. Maximum question has been asked from that word systema, right? Our systema to key word, Latin word too important, right? Physiology and biochemistry. Biochemistry. You have a next class now? Aru ki class ase? Maths ase? 6:30. Okay. Systematics, again, it's a form of taxonomy. We have not completed this topic. Since the time is over, we'll do it tomorrow, right? As of now, we are talking about systematics, and what you understand, systematics is also a type of classification. By doing such a type of classification or study, we take certain things into consideration. Kali aru precisely likhim. Yate, what is the basic difference between taxonomy and systematics is, I think you have noticed, ma bahut bar eta word likhisu, that is, Swason? Right? So, taxonomy আমি যিমানখিনি লিখিছো বা যিমানখিনি বুজিছো বহুত কিটা ক্ৰাইটেৰিয়া কনসিডাৰ কৰা হৈছিল কিন্তু ইভলিউশন পইণ্ট অফ ভিউ আমি কনসিডাৰ কৰা নাই কিন্তু ইয়াতে এভৰিথিং উইল বি কনসিডাৰ্ড টুগেদাৰ উইথ দ্যাট ইভলিউশন ইজ অলসো দ্যাট সামথিং দ্যাট উইল ষ্টাডি ৰাইট মৰ্ফোলজি এনাটমি ফিজিঅলজি সাইটোলজি ইকোলজি প্লাস ইভলিউশন systematic classification minus evolution taxonomic classification. Right? So what is the most important point over here is, here we study the evolution of the organism. Eta organism or evolution study korile ki hobo? Ami to gutekhini gom pam no? Next key changes hobo, agote key changes hosile. So proper type of classification, kuntu ba precise classification ki hobo? Systematics. Right? So ekhin loke thon, kaile ami ki korim? Taxonomy jeneke ami elements of taxonomy koriso, yate ami ki korim? Elements of systematics korim. Types of taxonomy koriso, types of systematics korim. I think this is all for today, right? Thank you.